Okay. Hello and welcome to the Environmental Answers podcast. We are so lucky today to have the CEO and founder of one of DC's top startups. Is that correct?
Yes, thank you so much. We were just featured on the Realist top DC startups for 2025. So really excited that we made number two slot on that list, and we were recognized in that way.
That is dynamic. That's dynamic. So you all are tuning into the Environmental Answers podcast. My name is Tiana Alame. I'm the CEO and founder of Environmental Answers. We're bringing you clarity on what's what in the environmental industry. Today, like I said, we have the CEO and founder of one of DC's top startups, Hazel. How do you say your last name?
Horvath.
Horvath. Okay. It's really nice to meet you. Could you tell me a little bit more about yourself and your journey into this position at Ecolytics?
Of course, and thank you so much for having me today. Really excited to be here. So as Tiana said, I'm Hazel Horvath. I'm the founder and CEO of Ecolytics. And what we do at Ecolytics is we provide software to help companies build data-driven, impactful sustainability programs. My journey to becoming a founder and starting Ecolytics was very much, I was deep within the subject matter of sustainability and then turned founder from working in the field. So I had multiple experiences that ranged from working here in the States to in Geneva in Switzerland and Beijing in China. That took me really across the globe and learning the ins and outs of the sustainability field. And I felt that where I could be most impactful and where I had a certain interest was in helping businesses figure out and navigate this emerging field of sustainability that seemed like it was very confusing, difficult to measure, difficult to track for companies. And so working in that and seeing how for especially the small to mid-sized businesses, not the Fortune 500 companies, there really weren't great solutions for companies to figure out sustainability and how to get the most value out of it from both aligning with their values and getting business value out of it. And so that led me on my entrepreneurial journey, and here we are today.
That's really dynamic. We coined or named this episode the profitable data. So you're seeing like what we really need in order to bring things more sustainable. When you say sustainable, could you actually define what that means for me and the audience? Because we found that like that can mean different things in different places.
Totally. So when we talk about sustainability, we talk about how your business has a triple bottom line. And to use another term that probably needs to be defined as well, in that means that companies look at their impact on people and the planet in addition to their profit when they're making decisions. So thinking about all the things that go into your effects on the planet as a business, your effects on people, and then also making sure to obviously still be a business, be for profit, and provide that value as well. So that's when we're thinking about sustainable business. We are helping create businesses that have that triple bottom line, that have that impact on people and the planet, as well as their own profit.
That makes sense. Could you conceptualize that a little bit more for me? So let's say I've never worked in a space where that mattered at all. If I'm a company that maybe sells food, maybe like dealing with water, would that be something that you're tracking? What is it that you're tracking?
Yeah, so to speak more specifically to Ecolytics and what we help companies do is we help set them up with all the impact data so they're able to define and track that impact on people and the planet. And so, like you said, as you said, you set up the question as a company that has never, been involved with sustainability. But it's a little bit of a trick question there because companies are, whether or not they're paying attention to it, they are using natural resources, they're, having an impact on people. And so they're having this effect, but they're not tracking it and they're not quantifying it, not realizing what that effect they're having to begin with. So that's that problem identification, right? That if you don't know and you're not tracking, you're not able to manage or measure or improve or see that impact on your own business. So you're not really getting a full picture of your business. So to caveat that, and then actually answer your question in terms of what we're helping companies track, is we'll get set up with thinking about two bigger groups of metrics of your environmental metrics. So diving into that a little bit deeper, things like carbon emissions, all three scopes of those, your waste, your water usage, where that impact on the natural world, on where your greenhouse gas emissions lie. And then thinking, so that's
No, no, no,
an
no,
impact
keep
on the
going.
planet. And then thinking more also about that impact on the people, that seems more, that falls more into a bit of a broader category, right? There are a ton of metrics that companies can track that can be a little bit more customized to their specific product and service. But starting to break that down for your own company, if this is something that's new to you, start thinking about your stakeholders. So think about the people that work for your company, the community that your company is based in, how your company is governed, who makes up that leadership. And that starts to dig into more metrics you can track and getting that full picture of your company.
Oh, that's really clear. Something here at Environmental Answers that we're looking at or in EnvAns is like understanding the why. Like, so I hear everything that you're saying. And so when you start to talk about that human piece, it's like it's us. Companies at the end of the day are made of people. So if the people can't understand the why, how can they conceptualize it? So could you talk and break apart like why this is a critical thing for us right now?
Absolutely. And that is such a great point about when I think it's a common misconception about sustainability is that sustainability can sometimes just be at a company, can sometimes just be equated with calculating a carbon footprint. When in reality, there are so many things that go into sustainability at a company, including people. And so companies that are maybe don't create a physical product that has that environmental impact, they still have people that work for them and that they need to look at the impacts on. So that's a great piece to mention in terms of looking at sustainability at a company for sure.
No, that makes sense. Following up with like the why one more time, just want to make sure, why is Ecolytics doing what it's doing? Is this supposed to help companies as far as like their next steps? Are you helping them? And you mentioned a term, which maybe this is too many questions at one time, but you
No,
talked about
it's
like
okay.
scope
We're
one
talking about
and
the why
two.
and then yeah.
Yeah. No, but like the scope 1, 2, and 3,
Mhm.
oftentimes, like, we work in the environmental space and we know what that means. But I do have some listeners that might be like, what does that even mean? And why does that matter?
Totally. Okay, so starting with the broader why, is what we're focused on doing at Ecolytics is as companies build out sustainability as a business practice, they build teams around it, they need a tool to make the most of their time and money when doing this work. Right now, the process is extremely manual. It's difficult to know what data to track, how to track it, and it becomes a manual process. And so as companies build out these teams or build out that practice at their company, just like they would a sales team, a marketing team, they need this tool. Your sales team has Salesforce, your marketing team might use HubSpot or
Mhm.
something like that. And so a tool that can really clearly show the impact of sustainability at your company and then also provide an end-to-end sustainability service is what we create for companies and just lowering that barrier to entry. Like
Mhm.
as we're about to talk about what scope 1, 2, and 3 mean, there is so
Yeah.
much jargon and there is just it's difficult to know where to start. And then when you're in it, there's a lot of jargon, a lot of definitions needed, a lot of things to understand. And so we try to lower that barrier to entry for companies so that they can really get to those improvements and get to that value a lot faster.
No,
And
that makes
so
sense.
yeah, and so to answer your second question about the scopes of emissions, these are defined scopes of emissions when you're looking at the direct impacts that your company has. So things like owned vehicles or purchased gases are your scope 1 emissions that have that your company is emitting directly those emissions. Scope 2 are indirect emissions. So things like your electricity that you're purchasing, it's generated somewhere else, but your company is still using that electricity and therefore should report that footprint. And then scope 3 is the indirect emissions and along that supply chain as well. So a little bit more complex than scope 1 and 2 for companies to track, looking downstream and upstream in that supply chain on what impact you're having.
No, that's really clear. I appreciate how you broke that down. Something else that came up when I was searching and learning more about Ecolytics is like B Corp. That's a terminology that here's it's like put on companies and they go through a process. And I think you guys help companies with that. Is that correct?
Yes, that is definitely our specialty in
Okay.
that B Corp is a process that can take some companies years to achieve. And with our platform, we can help them make it happen in a matter of weeks.
Mm.
Because the process from measuring everything that needs to be measured, implementing policies, creating impact reports, all things that make up a great sustainability program at a company, are all things that are required for B Corp. And so we've also built in specific modules that can help you report into B Corp. So that process is so much more seamless for companies.
That makes sense. So why, if you were going to tell me like I have a company, why would I want to be a B Corp? Like, could you break that down a little bit for me?
Yeah. And so it helps that we already talked about sustainability and that triple bottom
Mhm.
line and people, profit, purpose in the definition of B Corp. Because what B Corp does is provides a framework through the B impact assessment for companies to measure, manage, and improve their sustainability. So the B impact assessment is.
Does B stand for something like the B and B Corp? Is it like benefits? Because like in my mind, like what does B stand for? Or
Yes.
what?
So it does get a little bit confusing in terms
Uh-huh.
of when you think about a B Corp, you're commonly thinking, okay, is it an S Corp, a C Corp? Is it another legal designation?
Uh-huh.
And so there is a piece of B Corp that so B Corp, the standards want to hold companies, have companies be transparent, also legally accountable. And so one piece of it is in states in the US with a benefit corporation legislation, companies can actually put their purpose into their articles of incorporation by becoming a benefit corporation or a PBC, public benefit corporation. So that is just a legal process within your articles of incorporation that says we are a company, we are a for-profit company, but we also have this specific benefit that we want to have for the public. So it's a great way to hold your company accountable to fulfilling and working towards your mission. Like a common example, Mark Cuban's Cost Plus Drugs is a public benefit corporation, having that positive impact on the healthcare industry, right? Um, but to take a step back and talk more about B Corp, which is that broad definition of companies that have fulfilled the legal requirement if it's required in their state, but then also have completed this very rigorous assessment that dives deep into their impact on all of their stakeholders and makes sure and verifies that they're having this positive impact. That
No,
was
that's really, really
diving
helpful. I
deep
know
into the
that
B Corp world.
no, but I think it's really important and critical, especially for our listeners. Typically, we're looking at sustainability managers, energy leaders, like listening in, trying to make sure that we're all in alignment. So there's so many definitions. So like, that was really clear for me. So I really appreciate you breaking it down that way for us. Something that, I know that you guys are a leader in helping that happen. So we're so grateful for Ecolytics because like, honestly, the work that you guys are doing is streamlining something that has been spread apart, in the environmental industry. I like to think something that you said that was really critical or resonated with me is that Salesforce is for the salespeople. So having Ecolytics for people that are in sustainability, it's like, thank goodness we now have something that standardizes our process. So one of the other questions that came across my desk was centered around innovation, specifically within energy or in the industry. So could you give us a little bit of perspective on that?
Yeah, definitely. And I think it goes with the question on B Corp, and to speak a little bit more on that. In terms of the B Corp standards are currently evolving so that they're B Corp goes through, sustainability, as I'm sure you've talked about on this podcast, is a continuous improvement process. So
Mhm.
companies are always tracking and measuring when doing the work right and continuing to work on those improvements. And so B Corp in the same way, or B Lab, which is the global nonprofit in charge of putting together the standards, they also go through a continuous improvement process, making sure that their standards are up to date and holding companies accountable, and showing that companies really are reaching this very rigorous standard. And so previously, companies had to just score above 80 points, which I say just score above 80 points. It's very difficult. Most companies, when they go through the process, score in the 40s or 50s. So getting over that 80-point hurdle is a challenge already. But so they're moving away from that model to now having companies be focused on that continuous improvement and to build that into the standards. So previously, you could have just scored above 80 every time and continue to be a B Corp, but now they're making those standards focused on continuous improvement as well. And so that's really where Ecolytics comes in, and we provide even greater value for our customers, for prospective current B Corps, in terms of being able to help companies on that continuous improvement journey, because we're making it much easier for companies to track and improve their sustainability, that we can also help guide them along these B Corp standards and really implement great sustainability at their companies.
No, like that really is awesome to hear that evolution in industry, like going from like just being able to do these set things and then you'll get your 80 points. Now it's like actually like we already know some of you know how to get that 80 point. Now we need you to continue to get better because the goal is to be more sustainable over time because it's a building upon, right?
Definitely, yeah. And I think that as there's such a broad consumer awareness of greenwashing that
Mhm.
is so great, that consumers are critical and are thinking critically about the products that they buy. But there's a little bit of a double-edged sword in terms of the companies that are doing everything right are trying to prove it, and then are sometimes, they want to make sure that they're doing everything right, and sometimes it's hard to tell, right, with companies that are doing things right and companies that may not be implementing as great practices. So with B Corp's updated standards, they are continuing to hold companies to a really high bar and really maintaining the integrity of the standard.
No, that's awesome. That's dynamic. I really, again, I'll say I admire the work that you're doing at Ecolytics because that's very helpful in helping us, move forward. One of my personal goals is that before I leave this planet, I want the world to be at least 2% more sustainable, right? Like we can't do it all in a one lifetime, but like knowing that there's multiple people, like that multiplying effect, then we can all make it even more, a larger percentage. So that's awesome. You're really like compounding interest on the investment with the work in the stuff. So I just want to circle back to why I called this episode The Profitable Data one more time. The fact that there's so much untapped systems that still need to be developed when it comes to sustainability is something that I see you are fulfilling. Would you agree that there's just so many pieces when it comes to sustainability that needs to be done? So there's opportunity for business development.
Absolutely. Because it's almost a bit of a process problem, right? In that as companies grow to a huge size, suddenly now they're very much affected by regulations, even though the smallest of businesses are starting to be affected by that. But that it's like we're only thinking about sustainability for those Fortune 500 companies. But there is so much both value and sustainability and need for it for the rest of the majority of companies that exist. And so that's what at Ecolytics our goal, and what we're helping companies do is to start building sustainably from the start, so that it's a integrated practice in your company and you're already seeing that value from day one.
From beginning, whether you're in a growth situation, whether you're in an early stage situation, you have the opportunity to be sustainable. And it seems like Ecolytics has the formula to help you get there. So in wrapping up, I have two things I want to check in with you about. One, are you currently feeling like support when it comes to the work that you're doing? Are you plugged into a community? If so, like, is there anyone that you want to shout out, or conferences or anything that you have attended that you want to say like, hey, this has been great for me in this space?
This podcast became a lot about B Corp, which I think you can tell is like our, specialization and what we're really working in. Although you're welcome, to talk to us if B Corp isn't your goal, but that's really the community that we work within as well. So would just love to, add an additional plug around that outside of Ecolytics and outside of the work that we specifically do, that B Corp is just a great place to start for companies that are looking for a community around sustainability and a network. There are most likely be locals in your area too. So that's the community aspect. I'm on the board of Be Local Mid-Atlantic, so the Mid-Atlantic region in the US. And those are great resources for sustainability professionals, companies that are looking at sustainability to be reaching out to and thinking about and looking to as they look to take the first steps.
No, that's awesome. And then my other question is a little less focused on what we've been talking about, but still focused on the theme of the environment, because we all typically, if you're working in sustainability, you love nature, but you also love physical spaces, right? So I was curious to ask you if you could tell me either a place that you've been to recently or somewhere that you just find that is a wonderful environmental space that you've been able to enjoy.
This is such a great question, and I feel like I have so many,
Well,
but in thinking about that, but I'll say a recent one is I was actually back at my alma mater, Duke University in North Carolina, it was reunion weekend, and so we spent some time with some of my old classmates at the Duke Gardens, and that's just really it was a special place for me when I was an undergrad. It's a really surreal, and if you're in North Carolina, definitely check it out. But there's some beautiful curated gardens down there, and just to be able to be a student there and go do homework in the gardens, now looking back was definitely special memories that I didn't realize how lucky I was when I was an undergrad.
No, that's really awesome. I've been to the Duke Gardens. I was to say, like, I graduated from Duke with my master's in May. So, like, I do also really enjoy the Duke Gardens. That's a very, very special place. So, go blue. Like, that's what I got to say now.
I know, exactly. Great way to end the podcast.
Right? Go, like, exactly. That's how we end it, like that. So, anyway. I just want to thank you again, Hazel, for your time and all the work that you're doing. For those who are interested in like either scheduling some time to learn more about what you guys are doing, what is the best way for them to reach you?
I would say connect with me on LinkedIn. It's a great way to connect. And my username is just my name and then my last name. So Hazel, Hazel Horvath, Horvath. And you should be able to find me no problem. And everything is Ecolytics and B Corp. So you found the right person if you're seeing that.
That's perfect. Well, we just want to thank you again for your time today. Here at Environmental Answers, our goal is to support environmental leaders, the sustainability managers that are often doing this work, the hard work by themselves. And we want to be a podcast and a resource for them to be able to know. If you have a question, you can send it to EnvAns. So ask.envans.org, and we'll do our best to either connect you with resources, connect you with community, because at the end of the day, we all need each other to move things forward. So thanks again for tuning in. We will be back in, I think, 2 weeks, the 23rd, with a really nice episode for you yet again to provide you clarity on what's what. All right. Hope you have a good rest of your day. Thanks for tuning in. Bye.